Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at how to create a domain controller in Azure. Let's start by looking at the steps involved. First, we're going to need to create an Azure virtual network. And next, in this virtual network, we're going to create 3 virtual machines. To make the process of creating these virtual machines much quicker, we're going to use Azure CLI, also known as Azure Command Line Interface. This is a faster way to create resources in Azure instead of clicking through the Azure portal. We'll make the first VM the domain controller, and once the domain has been created, we'll add the other 2 VMs to the domain. Here's an architectural diagram of what this looks like. You see we have the Azure Virtual Network up top to the left, and inside of this virtual network, you see the 3 VMs, one of them being the domain controller. And to the right inside of this virtual network, you also see the domain name. I call it concept.com. Just a quick name I just came up with for this example. So let's head over into the Azure portal to see how we can set this up. By the way, it's worth pointing out that if there is a section within this video that's more pertaining to you, I've created chapters within this video such that it's easy for you to skip around. For example, if you're familiar with the creation of Azure VMs, you could skip the next section I'm about to go through and head over to the part where we add the VMs to the domain. So back in the Azure portal, what we want to do is open up the Azure Cloud Shell. You can find this at the top beside the search bar. And this is where we're going to create the 3 VMs that we mentioned. I'm going to expand my Cloud Shell environment by clicking this button over here. And this is going to open a new tab where I can get a bit more real estate to type in these commands. So let's take a look at what we're going to type in Cloud Shell. First, we're going to create a resource group. And as you know, just about everything in Azure requires a resource group. I'm going to call this concept RG. Next, we'll create a virtual network. For the virtual network, we're going to call it concept VNet. Attach it to the same resource group concept RG, as well as giving it a subnet name called default and putting it in East US for the location. And for the virtual machines, I went ahead and listed out all the different items that are going to be needed, like the resource group, the name of the virtual machine, the image that's going to be used, the virtual network, the subnet, as well as the admin username. When we put it all together, this is what it looks like. Now that we've seen all the commands, let's head back into the Azure Cloud Shell to start executing these. So back in the Cloud Shell environment, I'm going to paste the command to create the resource group. By the way, these commands are available in the descriptions below. We can see that it ran successfully. Next, I'm going to paste the command to create the virtual network. This should create very quickly. Let's head back into the Azure portal to confirm that the resource group has been created as well as the virtual network. So back in the Azure portal, you can go ahead and hit refresh and you see the resource group concept RG. And if we take a look inside, we can see that the virtual network has been created. Now let's go back into the Cloud Shell and paste the command to create our first virtual machine, which we plan to make the domain controller. It's going to prompt us to put in a password, and once we do that, it will start to create the VM. I'll fast forward this process and continue on once it's done. Back in our resource group, we can see it created successfully, and we have 6 resources in total. Let's go ahead and do this for the other 2 VMs. I'm going to speed this up since the steps are pretty much the same. So now that the 3 VMs have been created, we can look back into the resource group and we can see now that we have a total of 16 resources. We can order by type, and with this we're able to see the 3 VMs. And the next thing we want to do is log into each of these VMs, primarily the concept DC, which is where we're going to be doing most of the work to make it a domain controller. I've gone ahead and logged into each of these VMs inside of the RDC manager. And this is one of my favorite tools to log into multiple VMs at once. Look out for another video where I talk more about setting up your RDC manager environment. If you look up here, you can see that I'm in the concept DC server. We'll start by installing some roles into this server. Click add role and features. Click next, next again. And we're going to do this till we get to server roles. And select Active Directory Domain Services and DNS Server. We'll get a prompt about adding the features. Hit add features. Once you've done that, hit next till you get to the confirmation page. Check the box to restart the destination server automatically, and it will prompt you to confirm, so hit yes, and now press install. This will start the installation process. And once it's done, you'll notice it adds both ADDS and DNS as a tab here on the server manager. You also see we have a yellow notification up here. Let's see what that is. You can see it's asking us to promote this VM to be the domain controller. Let's click it, and you should get a wizard to begin this process. On here, we'll select add a new forest, and in the white box below, we will type in the name we want to call our domain. Remember we said we're going to call it concept.com. You can call yours whatever you want, like yourname.com. We'll hit next and give the domain controller a password. Once you do that, we'll hit next all the way till the end, and the VM will restart automatically. I typically go into the VM and restart here as well. And once it's done, next thing we're going to do is make the DC a DNS server. We'll do this by going into the networking section, grabbing the private IP, and then we'll go to virtual network, select DNS, choose custom, and place the private IP we copied earlier and press save. I'll also restart the other two VMs since they are all in the same virtual network. We can head back into our domain controller to confirm the domain has been created and that this VM has also been promoted to be the domain controller. The way to do this is by selecting local server, and you can see the domain name is concept.com. If we check the other two VMs, the domain should still be the default on any computer that isn't joined to a domain. And this should say work group in capital letters. So our next task is to join these other two VMs to the domain. We'll do this by selecting work group, and this will bring out the system properties wizard. Select the button that says change and type in the domain name and press OK. And this will prompt you for the password we used when creating the domain earlier. And once you type it in, you'll get a welcome message to concept.com or whatever your domain name is. Press OK and you'll be prompted to restart. We'll do the same for VM2, except I'll do this a bit faster since the steps are the same. Now we'll restart both VMs again. And once it's done, we can check to confirm that they were added successfully to the domain. And you can see that they are. Thanks for watching this video. Feel free to share this with someone that will be interested. And don't forget to like, subscribe, or leave a comment. And I'll catch you in the next video.